event today. Ladies and gentlemen, to start our webinar today, we will listen to the video from Professor Matt Mayer, please. Right, can we play the video? Can we play the video, please? All right, so I think we got a technical problem with the video.
Particular seminar today.
Okay, Mas Ibnu, since we cannot listen to the audio of the video, I think we will proceed to our next program. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we will listen to the national anthem of the Republic of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya. Mas Ibnu, Indonesia Raya, please. All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Now I would like to invite Major General Dr. Jonni Mahroza to address his speech. Dr. Jonni Mahroza is graduated from Indonesian Military Academy in 1989. For the first 10 years of service, he served at the 2nd Battalion of Air Defense of Artillery in Malang, East Java. During his assignment at his battalion, he also managed to complete his first and second degree. He pursued his first degree in politics and public administrations at Indonesian Open University in 1992 until 1995, then conducted his MA in International Relations at the University of East Anglia, Norwich, United Kingdom in 1995 until 1996. He was assigned a couple of staff positions at Artillery Center between 2000 until 2002 in Cimahi, Army Command and Staff College in 2006 until 2009 in Bandung, and the Ministry of Defense from 2009 until 2010 in Jakarta. And from 2002 until 2006, he was studying his PhD in ASEAN Studies at the Flinders University of South Australia, Adelaide. In 2010, he served as a lecturer as well as the head of public relations at Indonesia Defense University, or IDU. Then in 2012 until 2015, he was Indonesian Defense Attaché in London, UK. Also, a non-resident defense attaché to the Kingdom of Sweden and the Kingdom of Denmark from 2016 to 2017. He pursued another master degree in national security strategy at National War College of U.S. National Defense University, Washington, D.C. In January 2018, he returned to IDU and served as a lecturer, as well as the secretary of the study program of defense diplomacy. Now, he is the Vice-Rector. He's the first Vice-Rector of the Indonesian Defense University. Sir, would you please?
Okay, can everybody hear my?
Yes, sir, please.
Excellencies, General, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to bid all of you good afternoon and greetings of peace. I am pleased to be able to celebrate International Day of Peace with you today. I really appreciate collaboration between the Indonesia Peace and Conflict Resolution Association, IPCRA, the Indonesia Defense University Alumni Association, CIQnR, and the Asia Pacific Peace Research Association, APRA, in this webinar cum, a celebration of International Day of Peace, or Peace Day, especially by having a wonderful multinational audience in both Zoom and YouTube platforms. As we know, the International Day of Peace has been celebrated worldwide every 21st September since 1981. It is the day that has been unanimously decided by the United Nations through a resolution. This globally shared date reminds all humanity to commit to peace above all differences. To continue my point about peace, let me share with you an interesting chapter from a book written by Martin van Creveld called The Culture of War. In this chapter, he said that the ideas of peace are just as old as the human civilization. He explained that both of the most important Chinese philosophies, Confucianism and Taoism, strongly oppose violence in all its forms. Turning from China to Greece, great philosophers such as Xenophanes, Pythagoras, and Gorgias, who lived 500 to 300 BC, all prized peace and condemned war. What is true of ancient China and Greece is equally true of other people at other times and places. Christianity, for example, emerged, at least in part, as a protest against war and violence. A basic foundation of Islamic teaching mentions that Islam should be rahmatan lil alamin, meaning as the blessing for all the nature. Similarly, Hindu always emphasizes ahisma, or non-violence. Indeed, the love of peace and the hatred for war has become a common idea for centuries. Throughout the history, there have been many people, including highly influential ones, who courageously campaign against war and violence. Martin van Crevel also warned us, in order to be able to build a culture of peace, we should also understand the culture of war. By doing so, we can do our best to spread and to build awareness, then to shape the world toward a peaceful one. If we move back to 1967, peace was also the spirit and motivation behind the creation of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN. The need for a commitment to peace was one shared by Southeast Asia countries' leaders to overcome the national and regional crises. At the time, good relations and cooperation among neighbors in the spirit of mutual respect and understanding were deemed necessary to transcend peace. How about today's condition? I think you all agree with me that the challenges to peace in our region are not small. We may not see domestic upheavals, open interstate confrontation, and armed conflicts in our region. However, the Southeast Asian region is not an isolated place. We are part of a bigger community of Asia-Pacific region, and even a global environment within which we are all very well connected. In one way or another, we will be affected by every dynamic of it. To take this into account, we should not ignore warnings by great political scientists such as Professor Graham Allison of Harvard University, who warned the world about the possibility that the US and China might fall into what he called Thucydides trap. It is a trap of a major war, which was historically a common phenomenon in the global power transition. It is similar to what we are witnessing today between the US as an established power and China as a rising power. Professor John Mearsheimer of Chicago University, author of a famous book, The Tragedy of Great Power Politics, warned us about the same thing. He also talked about a major war between the two great powers in Asia-Pacific region. In his analysis, one of the most potential triggers and hotspots will be in our region, the South China Sea. You may argue that the US-China war will not happen because both countries will avoid mutual suicide because their nuclear weapons and the economies are very much interconnected. I hope so too. But let me share with you the last warning from Professor Yuval Noah Harari, the author of a book, The 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. He warns us, never underestimate human stupidity. All major wars were triggered by small incidents. He tried to convince that there is no guarantee that the US-China war will not break out. Therefore, I'm trying to raise our awareness that it is the interest of all countries in the region to build peace cooperation on many layers and levels of societies. It could be on a people to people, business to business, government to government basis, as well as among other multinational institutions in many forms, including educational institutions. As an educational institution, Indonesia Defense University, IDU, launched a Peace and Conflict Resolution Study Program on 28 March 2012 during the International Defense Dialogue JIDD 2012. Peace and Conflict Resolution, or PCR study itself, is not a new field of study. It is a kind of inter and multidisciplinary academic field that has gained more acknowledgement of resolving problems in many agitated countries that face problematic issues in multi-ethnic, religion, and other structural sources of conflict. IDU has also active roles in promoting peace and security, such as through dialogue and cooperation under ASEAN Regional Forum, ARF, heads of defense university, colleges, institution meetings, or HDU-SIM. IDU also consider an event like today's event as very important. So we fully support it to help promote peace around the world. We will learn more about the works of the ASEAN Institute of Peace and Reconciliation from Ambassador Rezlan Ishar, the Executive Director. Thank you, Ambassador Rezlan Jenie. We hope we will learn some of the problem solving to overcome the current worldwide public crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic. Besides that, we will also get to learn to working together to establish a mutual understanding between nations in the ASEAN region. We will also learn about soft power approach, that is the choice of many countries in dealing with conflict situations. My colleagues from the Ministry of Defense of the Republic of Indonesia, Major General TNI Dr. Rodon Pedrason, MA, will highlight the current issues in Indonesia and the region. Thank you, Major General Rodon Pedrason. We also have Professor Herbert Rosana, Professor of Peace and Security Studies, Bicol University, the Philippines. We share the beliefs that peace education is essential. It is the foundation of peace cooperation and peace-building initiatives that will impact people's livelihood and sustain peace. Thank you, Professor Herbert Rosana. Finally, we also have notable peace and conflict scholars as our discussions. We have Professor Kamarul Zaman Askandar from University Sains Malaysia USM of Malaysia, and Associate Professor Chanin Tira Natalang from Thammasat University, Thailand. Thank you, professors. I believe their thoughts will enrich the webinar today. Please enjoy the webinar. Hopefully, this webinar will fulfill its purposes to create a forum for exchanging ideas and enriching insight in the context of peace building, to provide an understanding to the public on the importance of synergy, cooperation, communication, and collaboration in soft power defense approach and human development, as well as to inspire and to motivate the spirit of peace and peace building among nations, especially the youth as the future leaders. Let's try to shape peace together, starting at your closest social circle. Hopefully, we can build a better culture of peace, not only among the Southeast Asian nations, but also to contribute to sustainable global peace. Along with the United Nations movement, shaping our future together, we started today by spreading peace and knowledge with this webinar. Happy International Day of Peace. May peace be upon us all, everywhere in the world. I stop here. Thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you very much, Major General Dr. Jonni Mahroza. Ladies and gentlemen, our webinar has officially opened now. Thank you, sir. And now I would like to remind the participants on Zoom, should you have questions to discuss, please drop your question in the Q&A box, while the participants on Ikatan Alumni Unhan YouTube channel, please fill in the form through the link that we have shared in the caption of the YouTube channel. And now allow me to introduce our moderator for today's session. We already have Ms. Nurina Vidya Hutagalung here with us. Ms. Nurina Hutagalung is currently a program specialist at Search for Common Ground Indonesia, who is responsible for the countering violence extremism, especially rehabilitation and reintegration program of USAID Harmony. She has completed her master's degree in Peace and Conflict Resolution Study Program at Indonesia Defense University in 2014 and received her bachelor's degree in International Relations from National University Jakarta. She has various experiences in CVE and Peacebuilding as a program manager and researcher. She was an awardee of International Visiting Leadership Program sponsored by the United States Department of State, and her interests include preventing and countering violent extremism, peace and conflict resolutions, and gender issues. To Ms. Vidya, please, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Adri. Happy International Day of Peace. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Nurina Vidya Hutagalung and will be your moderator for today's discussion. As we know, the dynamics of peace building in ASEAN is very interesting. ASEAN has received good credit in managing the conflict in its region. The ability of ASEAN in managing conflict is improving in recent decades. However, it should not make us neglect the rise of conflict and the threat of violent conflict within its member. Plus, we are now facing the pandemic, and must be very challenging, both for ASEAN as the regional entity and for each country as well. The conflict resolution strategies should be improving more. Today, we will discuss on shaping peace together to build a culture of peace among Southeast Asian nations. For today's discussion, we have a very honorable speakers over here with us. The first speaker is Ambassador Rezlan Ishar Jenie, the Executive Director of ASEAN Institute of Peace and Reconciliation. The second speaker is Honorable Major General Dr. Political Research Rodon Pedrason, the Director General of Strategic Defense Ministry of the Republic of Indonesia. And the third speaker is Professor Herbert Rosana, Professor of Peace and Security Studies from Bicol University, the Philippines. We also have two discussants today. They are Honorable Professor Kamarul Zaman Iskandar, Professor on Peace and Conflict Studies in School of Social Science, University Science Malaysia. The second is Honorable Associate Professor Chanitira Nathalang. She is an Associate Professor of International Relations, Peace and Conflict Scholar of Thammasat University, Thailand. Before we start the session, let's watch a video from ASEAN IPR. Please. Yeah. Thank you. Now I would like to read the short bio of Mr. Ambassador Rezlan Ishar Jenie. Ambassador Rezlan Ishar Jenie is currently the Executive Director of the ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliation. He was the Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Indonesia to France, Andorra, and Monaco, co-currently the Permanent Representative to UNESCO. He was the Director General of Multilateral Affairs, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Indonesia. He also served as Ambassador of Indonesia to the United Nations, New York in 2004 to 2007. In addition to the above assignments, Ambassador Rezlan also served as head of Indonesian delegation to the senior official meetings between Indonesia and Timor-Leste on the implementation of result of the Commission of Truth and Friendship in 2008 to 2010. And chair of the Peace Committee of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation on Southern Philippines, mediating the talks between government of the Philippines and the Moro National Liberation Force on the implementation in the 1996 final peace agreement. Ambassador Rezlan, the screen is yours for 20 minutes. Hello, Ambassador Rezlan. Okay, thank you.
Am I on? Is it okay now? Can you hear my voice? Moderator, can you hear my voice?
Yes, it's already on. Please.
It's clear.
I'm sorry for the technical glitch. Vice-Rector, Dr. Jonni Mahroza, distinguished speakers and moderator, participants, friends, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Let me start by expressing my appreciation to Universitas Pertahanan, Indonesia Peace and Conflict Resolution Association, IPCRA, and Ikatan Alumni Unhan for inviting me to be part of this occasion in observance of the International Day of Peace. Shaping peace together has always been the business of ASEAN. Today, I'm delighted to share a bit about the ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliation, and of course, its work. And to give a context to my presentation, let me refer to Para 4 and Para 5 of the ASEAN Community Vision 2025 by the ASEAN leaders. Here, the ASEAN leaders talk about realizing a rules-based, people-oriented, people-centered ASEAN community where human rights and fundamental freedoms are promoted and respected. And they also envision a community that is peaceful, stable, and resilient in an outward-looking region within a global community of nations while maintaining ASEAN centrality. The ASEAN IPR is part of the ASEAN community building process. It was established under the ASEAN Political Security Community Blueprint 2009-2015 to strengthen research activities on peace, conflict management, and conflict resolution. And in 2011, ASEAN leaders instructed their foreign ministers to work for the establishment of the ASEAN IPR. 1 year later, in 2012, the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting adopted the terms of reference for the Institute. And subsequently, ASEAN leaders launched the ASEAN IPR on the sidelines of the 21st ASEAN Summit in Phnom Penh. So, The Institute function and work as a tool for the furtherance of the ASEAN community building process, namely within the political security pillar. Now, let me highlight some of the features of the Institute and show the uniqueness of this Institute within the ASEAN structure. The Institute mandate is to be the ASEAN institution for research activities on peace, conflict management, and conflict resolution. And to implement its mandate, the Institute is given certain functions, among them to undertake activities such as research, capacity building, pooling of expertise, and support for ASEAN bodies, networking, and dissemination of information. The Institute structure consists of 3 branches. One is the Governing Council, the decision-making body of the Institute, where 10 government-appointed representatives from each ASEAN countries are present, and the Secretary General of ASEAN and the Executive Director sits as ex officio member. The other one is the Advisory Board, which is to determine research priorities of the Institute. And here, I think I like to underline that the membership are more diverse than the Governing Council. It consists of officials coming not only from the government, but coming from non-government institutions. Here, I like to recognize my good friend, Professor Zam, who is a member of the advisory board and a well-known academic in a staunch peace activities. The Secretariat is headed by the Executive Director, which represents, of course, the Institute in all administrative and operational matters, as well as managed activities of the Institute. Now, although, as I said before, ASEAN IPR is expected to undertake research and study, the Secretariat are not provided with in-house researchers. Therefore, the Institute must reach out. It has to collaborate, and it has to tap into the capacity of many existing think tanks, academia, and CSOs in the ASEAN region. Now, where is ASEAN IPR within the broad structure of ASEAN? ASEAN IPR was established by the call of ASEAN leaders, but it is considered as an entity associated with ASEAN. It is not an ASEAN chartered body like IPCRA or like ASEAN Foundation. Other entities associated with ASEAN are think tanks, academic institutions, non-governmental entities, business organizations, and we are together in what they call Annex 2 of the Charter. However, even though an associated entities with ASEAN, ASEAN IPR reports annually on its activities to the ASEAN Political and Security Council. And this is, I think, important to be known. Now, some uniqueness that is given to the Institute, I think, is by design, especially in its flexibility to work with CSO and NGOs. And this is in line with the outlook of a people-oriented and people-centered ASEAN community. It is not only a state-centric, but ASEAN IPR is also a people-centric institute. This is reflective in the characteristic of the ASEAN IPR, as an intergovernmental body, but in its activities more as a 1.5 track process. Other than the ASEAN human rights body, IPR, the Institute is perhaps the only body within the APSC pillar where government and non-state actors are within its structure and sit together to discuss issues relating to peace, conflict resolution, conflict management, and post-conflict peace building. And this feature, in my view, gives certain space and flexibility for the ASEAN IPR to be a platform where issues that is considered sensitive for track 1 to be discussed, it could be discussed in ASEAN IPR under formulation of research and study. Now I would like to take you on the activities of the ASEAN IPR. The first research project that we have is on the lesson learned from a process of conflict resolution within the government of the Republic of the Philippines and the Moro National Liberation Front, as mediated by Indonesia in 1993-1996. This is one area where the ASEAN IPR is mandated to do. And the purpose of conducting a research project is in part to educate or to make available to the public that the region is rich in experiences and valuable practices in resolving conflict. And based on this research, perhaps later on it might be developed into common practices and shared norms in ASEAN and on how conflict is being resolved. And in the pipeline, we are looking, of course, at more cases of conflict resolution and reconciliation to be studied. Second, the Institute has great interest in the role of women as important stakeholders in peace processes. The latest activity of ASEAN IPR, in this case, is the ASEAN Women Interfaith Dialogue, with the theme promoting understanding for an inclusive and peaceful society. It was held in Jakarta, November last year. The activity was the first ever interfaith dialogue of women in ASEAN. And I do believe, and the Institute does believe, that women voices and narratives are imperative to be heard in peace processes and peace-building efforts, considering their unique position and multitask role in the society. And related to women, peace and security, the ASEAN IPR in securing inclusivity in peace processes launched the ASEAN Women for Peace Registry at the end of 2018 in answering the call of the 2017 ASEAN Leaders Statement on Promoting Women, Peace and Security in ASEAN. The registry is consisting of 27 women coming from different lines of work and fields of expertise related to peace and reconciliation. Its mandate, among others, is to assist in peace processes and reconciliation efforts in member states at the request of the relevant ASEAN member states and based on ASEAN consensus. Another important segment of the population for ASEAN IPR in the quest for spreading a culture of peace is the youth. The ASEAN IPR held a youth conference in Jakarta in 2018 to address the theme of building understanding and tolerance in the face of rising radicalization and violent extremism. Here, the youth participants looked into how they could play a role using the latest information and communication technology in effectively spreading narratives of peace, to its peers at the community level. More activities focusing on the role of youth in peace processes are also in the pipeline. The Institute is developing a training series as part of its function in preparing and developing pool of experts from ASEAN member states as resource persons to assist in conflict management and conflict resolution activities. The hope is that through this training, participants coming from 10 ASEAN member states would not only enhance their capacity and knowledge, but most importantly, would know each other better and strengthen understanding, bond of friendship and camaraderie. The first leg of training series was convened in Philippines last year, taking on the theme Approaches in Peace Process and Peace Building in Southeast Asia and the Role of Mediators. And the next training will be in 2021 on the theme of ceasefire as well as reconciliation, respectively in Myanmar and Laos PTR. Lastly, I think you have seen in the beginning in the video that during the COVID-19 pandemic, we continue to be active through webinar series. We held 3 webinars already, namely on the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the WPS agenda in ASEAN, the role of CSOs in peace processes, and radicalization and violent extremism during COVID-19 pandemic. Now, please follow our next webinar on the impact of climate change on peace and empowering women and youth. Excellencies, distinguished speakers and participants, friends, ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I'd like to cite part of a statement by Adam Malik, a former Indonesian foreign minister and one of the founding fathers of ASEAN. He said that shaping of a future peace, friendship, and cooperation is far too important to be left only to government and government officials. As such, there is a need for ever-expanding involvement and participation of the people. With that quote, I would like to underscore again that the Institute hopefully continue to grow, not only as but as the platform and the hub of ASEAN citizens, be it ASEAN member states, other ASEAN entities, and many other stakeholders, women, youth, CSOs, NGOs, and academia, to collaborate on relevant issues related to peace, conflict resolution, peace building, and reconciliation. Greeting of peace to you, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Rezlan Ishar Jenie. It is a very enlightening presentation on ASEAN IPR role in the peace building in Asia, sir. I'm sure the participants have many questions, but before discussing more, let's proceed to the next presentation from Major General Dr. Rodon Pedrason. But before that, I would like to remind the participants on Zoom, should you have a question to discuss, please drop your question in the Q&A box, while the participants on YouTube channel, please fill in the form through the link that we have shared in the YouTube caption. Let me read the short bio of Major General Dr. Rodon Pedrason first. Major General Dr. Rodon Pedrason has a master's degree in security studies and a doctoral degree in political science. He has vast experience as military personnel from the Defense Attaché, Presidential Security Force, operational planning at the Indonesian Peacekeeping Mission Center, State Intelligence Agency, Chairman of State Intelligence Academy, and now as the Director General of Defense Strategy, Ministry of Defense, the Republic of Indonesia. Please, Major General Dr. Pedrason, you have 20 minutes to present. Hello, Mr. Rodon.
Thank you, Vidya. The first correction is I've never been a defense attaché. The defense attaché
Yeah.
is Pak Jonni. Yeah.
Sorry, my mistake.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya. I mentioned this kind of salam because Indonesia has a lot of religion, also has a lot of ethnic there. That's why I say sing salam by the various kind of religion that have in Indonesia. So the salam to the Vice-Rector of Indonesia Defense University, Major General Dr. Jonni Mahroza, His Excellency the Executive Director of ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliation, His Excellency Rezlan Jenie, and Professor Matt Mayer, Professor Herbert Rosana from Bicol University, the Philippines, Professor Dr. Kamaruzzaman Askandar from University Science of Malaysia, Associate Professor Chanintira Natalang from Thammasat University, Thailand, our moderator, Ms. Vidya Udagalung, and participants of the webinar. Good afternoon. Firstly, I would like to render our gratitude to God or the Almighty that to His blessing today, we can gather in this webinar in healthy condition, even though under the COVID-19 pandemic. And I would like to thank you very much to the organizer of this webinar, Indonesia Peace and Conflict Resolution Association, for your trust to give me the opportunity as a guest speaker in relation to the celebration of the International Day of Peace that occurred last Monday, 21st September. Based on the terms of reference of this webinar, as the second speaker, I would like to bring up some points of view to remind all of us of how important peace and stability are for all nations. This is the main crucial preconditions that must be fulfilled for sustainable progress and prosperity globally, including in the Southeast Asia. The theme given by the committee to me is the soft power approach in shaping peace together among ASEAN countries. Therefore, in conjunction with the mentioned precondition, I would like to share you all one of the essential ways to generate the precondition by implementing soft power approach. The approach has been carried out by for more than 4 decades by ASEAN leaders and significantly effective in shaping peace and stability in South Asia and immediate region until present time. Dear participant of webinar, as we all can see that there are 5 agendas in my presentation today that I would like to share with you, starting from the nature of soft power, its implementation in South Asia, the significance of cooperation among ASEAN countries for peace and stability, and some valuable prestige being a president of the UN Security Council in shaping peace and stability globally and regionally. And lastly is the conclusion of the presentation. To begin with, let me cite you Professor Joseph Ni statement about the definition of soft power. It is a power of nations endears other nation by using influence, a positive image, more indirect and non-coercive method in the word policy, domestic and foreign policies, action, and national qualities are some of the sources of soft power. Then I also quote some opinion from some experts who argue the importance of soft power. There are 5 reasons why it is important. Firstly, globalization has created interdependence, shifted the power from territorial state to transnational network. Secondly, the threat of nuclear war has created the world security community. And next, the growth of democracy has made the use of hard power become less effective because individuals who are politically empowered are able to give strong impediments to the use of force and coercion. Then, social and political change may have made modern population more sensitive to their economic than military. And lastly, the growth of international organizations and regimes in the post-war period has generated network of cooperation. In next slide, in accordance with the nature of soft power I mentioned before, I will provide you with the implementation of soft power, particularly in South Asia, in the next slides within 3 periods of time, during the Cold War, post-Cold War, and after 9/11. During the Cold War, ASEAN was established in 1967 based on strong commitment of Southeast Asia countries to the temporary cessation of conflicts in the region and promoting international and regional peace and stability. And then in 1971, ASEAN adopted a declaration stating determination to secure the recognition of South Asia as a zone of peace, freedom, and neutrality, or ZOPFAN, that is free from any forms of interference by outside power. Three-year later in Bali, in the first summit, ASEAN agreed on a treaty of amity and cooperation in South Asia, demanding the peaceful settlement of all intra-regional disputes as part of ASEAN's political cooperation. These three, let's say, these 3 soft power are strongly based on a principle of mutual respect for the independence, sovereignty, equality, territorial integrity, and national identity of all nations, the right to self-determination, and non-interference in the internal affairs of one another. In the post-Cold War, ASEAN produced to maintain political and security consensus. The ASEAN Regional Forum Plus, External Powers, or ARF, in 1994, and the South Asian Nuclear Weapon Free Zone, CIQnWFZ, in 1995. This 2 soft power implementation is based on the backdrop of resolution of Cambodia problem and China's territorial expansionism proclamation by occupying islands of the South China Sea. The success of soft power implementation for sustainable peace and stability in the region for 2 decades has enhanced cooperation among ASEAN to promote prosperity and face new trend of threat after 9/11. The declaration of the conduct, or DOC, of parties in the South China Sea in 2002 was a fundamental agreement referring to the South China Sea disputes. However, ASEAN and China have not agreed on some condition in the Code of Conduct proposal. It was discussed this last year, 2019, but postponed this year due to COVID-19 pandemic. The discussion will be continued soon after the pandemic allows. Then in Bali Concord 2, 2003, ASEAN managed to propose a deeper regional cooperation resulting in ASEAN Community in 2015. There are 3 major cooperation: ASC that becomes APSC in 2015, EC and ASCC. The next one is VIP in 2004. This is a remarkable change in how ASEAN thought about human rights. The webinar participants, the soft powers implementation I explained previously involved the nation leaders' participation. The next soft power are the creation of ADMM and ADMM+. The first ADMM was held in 2006, focusing on regional peace and stability through dialogue and cooperation in defense and security matters. This meeting is intended to senior defense and military officials within ASEAN and dialogue partners. Then the first ADMM Plus was held in 2010 with 8 dialogue partners countries such as the US, Russia, South Korea, Japan, China, India, Australia, and New Zealand. Through this media, ASEAN and partner countries managed to create ADMM Plus expert working groups that focus on 7 issues, which are the humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, military mediation, counterterrorism, maritime security, peacekeeping operation, humanitarian migration, and the last one is cybersecurity. Having highlighted the successful implementation of soft power in shaping peace and stability in the region, I will now share you some data of the benefit of cooperation as one of the types of the soft power. Firstly, ASEAN has become a hub of business in 2016, contributing 24% of world trade with roughly 2.2 trillion US dollar. Secondly, ASEAN is now the third largest global market with 600 million people after China and India. And next, the adult literacy and life expectancy rates consistently rise. Last but not least, ASEAN and China remain committed to the resolution of South China Sea disputes and continue discussing it through code of conduct. In this case, South China Sea conflict is not only involving claimant states, but also other parties within the region, and the others are one that have their own interests. Therefore, upholding peace and stability is the ultimate option for the sake of all parties. Our webinar participants, the last point I would like to share with you is the role of Indonesia as a soft power embraced actor. They bring it to a high level position in the UN. As a member of a non-permanent UN Security Council and becoming the president of the UN Security Council on 1st January 2019 to December 2020, there are 4 major objectives to be achieved as they are shown on this slide, and very special attention to the Palestinian issues. Being elected as the president for a certain period of time, Indonesia will be able to enhance its role to promote more robust soft power in international and regional stages. To conclude my presentation, there are 2 points that I would like to underscore. Firstly, ASEAN as the realization of soft power must remain consistent to shape and create sustainable peace and stability for regional and international prosperity. Lastly, Indonesia will enhance its soft power implementation through continuing to be the world peacekeeping role model. Now Indonesia is ranking 9 out of 121 troop contributing countries in the UN mission, and work intensively with other non-permanent UNSC to pay attention and other regional issues. As an information, such kind of presentation I shared to you, or I said to you previously, I write it completely in my dissertation entitled of ASEAN's defense diplomacy, the road to Southeast Asian defense community. Could be. So to conclude my presentation, I would like, let us say, I would be pleased to take some question, to take a Q&A from the participant and try to answer it as the best I can. So, I said it. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam, Om Santi Santi Om, Namo Buddhaya. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rodon. It is very interesting presentation from you. Once more, before we proceed to the next speaker, I want to remind all of the participants on Zoom, should they have a question to discuss, please drop your question in the Q&A box, while the participants on YouTube channel, please fill in the form through the link that we have shared in the YouTube caption. Now we are having our third speaker. He is Honorable Professor Herbert Rosana. I have a very interesting quote from him. I will read it for you. Since wars begin in the minds of man, it is the minds of man that the defense of peace must be constructed. That line from UNESCO's preamble captured the essence of his academic career in Bicol University from 1997. Until now, he is an educator, a teacher, a peace researcher, and a peace advocate. He holds a PhD in educational foundation and BA in philosophy. He was the recipient of training grants from International Institute on Peace Education in El Salvador, Central America in 1997, Human Rights and Equality of Women Training in 2005 and 2006 by the Roel Wallenberg Institute, Sweden. He is a top-level seminar on peace and security, Uppsala University, Sweden in 2008, East-West Summer Institute on International Humanitarian Law in 2010, Human Rights International Training by Equitas in 2015 in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And as a person, he believes in transformative education, whose aim is to transform individuals to become better persons by discovering and acting upon their full potential as human person. Currently, he is a full professor of Peace and Security Studies and officer in charge dean of the Bicol University Graduate School. Sir, could you please proceed? You have 20 minutes for your presentations. Don't forget to unmute the microphone, please. Hello, to Mr. Professor Herbert, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Hello, my dear friends. Thank you for giving me the chance to be able to speak to you about a subject which is very much relevant for our region and for the world in general. This topic is also important to me because peace education had been my lifelong work, and it has defined my career in Bicol University in the Philippines, being part of the original faculty that established the Peace and Security Studies program in my country at a time when peace and security studies was unknown and unrecognized as a discipline. And it has been almost 27 years since then. Thank you very much. Our region in Southeast Asia and in the South Pacific region has been perceived as a peaceful region, not having experienced the interstate conflict since the post-war period, with the exception of Vietnam in 1974 and 1975. Unlike in countries in the Middle East, Far East, and some parts of Africa and Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia has been relatively insulated from interstate conflict. But such perception of peace and tranquility that has brought progress and level up some Southeast Asian nation as economic tiger is not solid. First, because not everyone in Southeast Asia are tiger economies. Some are still struggling and beset by problems of state building, but none are considered failed state, however. Second, the reality of intrastate conflict still exists and perhaps will persist. And thirdly, the changing geopolitical landscape in many regions of the world will bring hidden challenges to the fore as history unfolds. Now, let us review and look at the status of peace and security in Southeast Asia and the Southern Pacific region. Southeast Asia is a unique region because it is a kaleidoscope of varying cultures, languages, and ethnicity. They share common experiences of colonization with the exception of Thailand. But somehow within this kaleidoscope is found harmony and unity, the spirit of consensus and respect for each other, which is typically Asian. Yet somehow this culture of consensus and respect hinders our ability to help one another, coupled with the fragility of this unity, and that unity in diversity can be fragile as each member of the group must tread carefully not to tilt the balance and never to rock the boat. But here, let us not rock the boat. Let us look at the security scenario and background of each country, having had the experience of communal conflict. First, we have Myanmar, emerging from 4 decades of ethnic-based insurgencies. But presently, some agreements have been reached, but peace is still fragile. Then we have Papua New Guinea, which some time ago, there was a separatist movement in the island of Bougainville, which claimed the lives of 15,000 people as a result of the fighting. But today, the island of Bougainville enjoys self-rule within the state of Papua New Guinea. Now, the Philippines, beginning in 1960, suffered 2 complex emergencies involving separatists rebel in Mindanao and also the communist insurgency. Almost 190,000 people were killed or displaced during the civil war in Mindanao. And 2 major agreements were reached with the 2 dominant groups in the South. One in 1989 with the Moro National Liberation Front, and in 2012 with the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. There is also an ongoing protracted violence in the strongholds of the New People's Army, the armed wing of the Communist Party of the Philippines. Now, in Thailand, the separatist insurgency in the south were predominantly Malay, where the predominantly Malay population lived. There was an easing of tensions in the 80s and 90s, but the issue also reignited in 2004. East Timor, almost 100,000 people died prior to independence in 2002. Now, intrastate conflict is the main feature of post-World War II period. As former colonies regained their independence and embarked on the process of nation building, the borders of these newly founded states were carved out by the colonialists without consideration of ethnic lines and linguistic lines in dividing these countries. The shaping of this border were more patterned after the Westphalian conception.
Sorry, we are trying to connect to Professor Herbert. It looks like he has a problem with the connectivity. A minute. Okay, we already have several questions here in the chat box and the Q&A chat box and the YouTube channel. While we are waiting, Professor Herbert. I would like to ask to Mr. Jonni, maybe do you have a question for our honorable speaker today? Hello, Mr. Jonni, are you still there? Okay. Still, we're still waiting. We're Mr. Herbert. I would like to read questions. Okay, sorry. Maybe we could just proceed to the next agenda. We will hear the first discussion today. We will hear the thought from the Professor Kamarul Zaman Iskandar. The Professor Kamarul Zaman Iskandar is a professor of Peace and Conflict Studies at University Science Malaysia. He is also the coordinator of Research and Education for Peace Unit at the university. Outside the university, he has been involved in many organizations in doing conflict transformation and peacebuilding activities. He is the representative of Malaysia to the advisory board of the Asian Institute for Peace and Reconciliation, chair of the governing board of the Program on Strengthening Human Rights and Peace Research and Education in Southeast Asia.
Multilateral actions.
I'm sorry.
This is the main
okay.
in
Looks we are back with with Professor Herbert. Okay.
Yeah.
I will continue to Professor Herbert. Hello, Professor Herbert.
Yeah, I lost my connection.
Okay. So I will give the screen back to you, please.
In Southeast
Professor.
Asia and Southern Pacific, both the traditional security threat and the non-traditional mix.
So I'm okay. This is okay now. So
I can say
yes,
that peace
it's all already on
the picture, though not given prominence nor becoming the subject of the spotlight. The data from the Mindanao Peacebuilding Institute reveals that a number of non-government organizations are actively involved in the promotion of peace. Among them are the Asian Muslim Action Network, Asian Resource Foundation, Balay Mindanao, Center for Peace and Conflict, Institute of Human Rights and Peace, Interfaith Cooperation Forum. Then we also have the Institute of Religion and Culture and Peace, Peace Studies Center, Myanmar Institute of Theology, Rotary Center of Chulalongkorn University. And aside from that, besides from the NGO, I would also opine that in Southeast Asia and in the Pacific region, some forms of peace education in universities and schools are happening. In my country, the Philippines, there are several universities that offers peace education as a program offering. Among them are the Asia Graduate School of Theology, which offers a degree in Doctor of Ministry in Peace Studies. Then Silliman University in Central Philippines, which offer Masters in Peace Studies. Then also Bicol University, from where I am, we offer a straight program in Peace and Security Studies from the bachelor's level to the PhD. Then we also have Notre Dame University in Cotabato in Mindanao, where they also offer a master's and PhD in Peace and Development. Then in Manila, we have the Ateneo de Manila University, which is of University. Now to second topic in about what is peace. In the academy, I developed my own definition of peace as a concept is procedural and terminal. It speaks of means and end, of being fulfilling. As a procedure, it specifies the means for as terminal that creates the full development of the human potential. We ask, what is education? The best answer for this is found in the statement in the preamble of the UNESCO, which says that since war begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed. And along this line, many theorists and academicians and social scientists have developed their own theory.
Hello. I think it's not working with. I am having some problems with connectivity. So maybe I will just forgo my discussion because it's not working anyway.
Okay, it's okay, Professor. Thank you very much. Hello.
Yes.
Yes, Professor. Thank you very much for the presentation. Maybe we will continue the discussion and answer the questions. But before that, I want to remind to the participants, please add your question in the Q&A box for the participants in Zoom room, and to the participants on the YouTube channel, please fill in the question on the question form that the link we have shared through the YouTube caption. We have heard three interesting presentations from our three speakers today. And now we will listen to our discussants to share their thought on today's speaker's presentation. The first discussion, we have Professor Kamarul Zaman Iskandar. I will introduce you once more. Professor Kamarul Zaman Iskandar is a professor of Peace and Conflict Study at University Science Malaysia. He is also the coordinator of the Research and Education for Peace Unit at the university. Outside the university, he has been involved in many organizations in doing conflict transformation and peace building activities. He is the representative of Malaysia to the advisory board of the Asian Institute for Peace and Reconciliation. He is also the chair of the governing board of the program on strengthening human rights and peace research in education in Southeast Asia. He has been the regional coordinator of the Southeast Asian Conflict Studies Network since 2001. He is also chair of the Penang Peace Learning Center, an alternative learning center that provides education to Rohingya refugee children in Penang, Malaysia. Professor Kamarul Zaman's research interests include conflict transformation, peace building, and peace processes. He has been involved in the peace building process in Aceh, Mindanao, and Patani. He lives in Penang and enjoys riding his motorcycle and playing the ukulele. Please, sir, you have 10 minutes to share your thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Let's see. Thank you very much, Mbak Widya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. The respected speakers, Major General Jonni Mahroza, Ambassador, my old friend, Ambassador Rezlan, Jenie, Major General Rodon, Pedrason, my friend, Professor Herbert, Rosana, and also all the other speakers and secretariat members. Thank you, first of all, for inviting me to be a discussant for this particular session. I'm very much honored to be here. And as a discussant, and I only have 5 minutes. I was told I have 5 minutes, but I can maybe extend that a bit. So I will be very, very short and quick, which is always very difficult for me. It's been a very interesting session so far. And the title, Building a Culture of Peace in Southeast Asia. I'll go first to discuss the title, Building a Culture of Peace in Southeast Asia, before going on to comment on some of the things that have been raised by the speakers. And I'll try to do that in a short period of time as possible. Okay, I have 10 minutes. Okay, thank you very much. So building a culture of peace in Southeast Asia, it denotes action. To me, building denotes action. You're trying to build something. We build a house, we build society, we build everything. So this is building, building society, something, and building a culture of peace. It also denotes building. It also denotes what kind of response do we have to a particular situation. Okay, it can either be reactive or proactive. And reactive meaning that we are responding to something. We are responding to the context of the world situation. So how to deal with the problems of the world? How do we deal with the issues that have been raised? How do we deal with conflict issues that have come up with society? How do we deal, with all these things? So that's one aspect of building, reactive. Another aspect of building is proactive. And I think this is something that our particular seminar today is trying to focus. Proactive, meaning that we already have a certain level of something and we are trying to build to increase what we have, to a position where it is much better than we already have it now. So in terms of peace, I think generally we have peace in Southeast Asia. Of course, we have our issues here and there. Of course, we have problems that have arisen not only between the countries, but more importantly within the countries. But generally, we have peace in the region. Okay, but it doesn't mean that we should stop and not build on the peace that we have. And I think this is something that we have to constantly do, improve on the kind of peace that we have, and improve on the mechanisms, improve on the procedures, improve on the way of thinking. Not only our policy makers, not only our governments, but our society in general. How do we see society? Is it something that we like? Is it something that we can improve upon? And this is when aspects like peace education and building a culture of peace and all these things come about. Okay, but before all those things, I think we have also to be clear. Okay, I said already earlier, what kind of peace, the peace that we have already in the region. The question that can be asked is what kind of peace that we have, and we can argue that okay, we have peace, but then is it really positive peace? Because there is a clear differentiation between negative and positive peace, because negative peace basically means the absence of violence. And I think although we see some level of violence here and there, but generally there is a lack of violence. So basically we have negative peace. We have not had any war between a Southeast Asian country with another Southeast Asian country, for many, many years. Despite, of course, some problematic issues that have come out between Malaysia and Singapore and Indonesia, for example, during confrontasi, or between Thailand and Cambodia over the temple issues. But generally, it's been peaceful. There is a lack of violence, so we have negative peace. But do we have positive peace? Do we have the kind of level of peace, that can be sustained, in the long time? And I would say partly, yes, we do have, partly positive peace, but it can be improved upon. Positive peace would mean that we need to have law and order, we need to have justice, we need to have the mechanisms, procedures, that can resolve violence and conflict before they come out. We need to have all these things. And we need this to become a habit. Okay, we need this to become a culture. And how does a culture comes about? A culture comes about by doing it over and over again. And this is where peace education comes in. Because peace education is about talking about peace, talking about what are the aspects of peace, that we have and that we can improve upon and enhance. And not only talking and learning about peace, but to do peace. To do it over and over, so that it become a way of life. Peace is not only, to the extent that peace is not only something that we learn in the classroom, but peace is something that we do every day in our life. And so peace education, should be creative, because I was told that there was a question, that somebody asked, how do we teach, peace education to our young people, to the youth, to the children? And I have to say that we have to be creative, because this is not something that you can just tell the students or tell our youth, okay, this is peace, A, B, C, D, E. Now go about, go out and implement this. This is not the way, to teach peace. Teaching peace meaning that you have to make them be part, of the process. You have to do activities. You have to do programs. You have to make them not only learn about the facts, but to understand and feel, and feel the facts and feel, the peace. So they have to be, creative activities, peace camps, for example, exchanges, understanding different civilizations, different cultures, learning new languages, go on field trips to visit, places where people are affected by conflicts and are facing humanitarian issues. You have all those things. So we need to find a creative way as possible, for our children, for our youth to learn and to make peace, a way of their life. So all these things. So that's part of building a culture of peace in Southeast Asia. And some years ago, I was involved in trying to promote peace in Malaysia. I remember this was maybe 15 years ago. Maybe the Prime Minister of Malaysia asked our group to come up with ideas on how to make Malaysia a more peaceful society. So I came up with this particular book. It's called Budaya Perdamaian Budaya Kita. Okay, our culture of peace. And in this book, I mentioned that there are certain ways that we can promote values of peace. So I'll just quickly read through. There are 10 things that we mentioned in this particular book. One is to reject violence and the use of violence in resolving all types of conflict. Okay, so violence is off the table. Reject violence and the use of violence. Second is to resolve problems and conflicts by searching for their real root causes through a process of dialogue and negotiation. Because some of the things that we do, we look at a particular conflict situation without going too deep into what are the real root causes. So in a sense that when you settle the conflict, you only settle the surface issues, the surface issues. So we have to dig real deep to find out what are the real root causes through a process of dialogue and negotiation, constantly having dialogue, constantly exchanging, communication as a way of doing things. 3, making unity as the foundation of peace. I think that's self-explanatory. 4, learning and understanding the different cultures and ways of life in the world. The more we understand other people, the more we will appreciate the differences that we have. 5, making social, economic, and political justice as the foundation for unity and peace, because without this kind of justice, social, economic, and political, there will always be people that feel they are left behind, that they feel that they are not part of society. So there will always be conflicts. 6, respecting and promoting the values of human rights, very important. 7, providing the proper channels and mechanisms for the society to air their grievances, feelings, and aspirations. This is very important because when we stress about dialogue, when we stress about communication, we are actually looking at opening channels of communication and encouraging channels of communications. If people do not have these channels, then they will try to use other means, including using violence and all those things. So we need to find the proper channel to air the grievances. 8, involving all levels and groups in society, especially women, the young, and children in all peace-related activities. So not only us old folks, but young folks, should be part of activities programs like this also, expanding peace education at all levels of education, and making the culture of peace our way of life. Culture of peace, our way of life. This is not promoting my book, but just explaining that some of these things that have been mentioned before. So making peace as our way of life, peace as our culture, and this is very important. And because people prepare a lot, when they want to go to war, when they want to fight each other, and I don't think we prepare enough for peace promotion within our society. So the kind of work that we do has to be ongoing. Okay. So lastly, I will just comment a bit. Lastly, I'm sure I'm running out of time, so I'll be very quick. Comment a bit about the speakers, and congratulations to all the speakers. I think it was very clear what was discussed by the speakers. Ambassador Rezlan, my old friend, old friend not because he's old, but old friend. Ambassador Rezlan talk about the ASEAN Institute for Peace and Reconciliation and all those things. I have no comment. I have no comment. A lot of good work they have been doing. I'm also part of the program. So if I give too much criticism, it will be also on myself. But so I think Ambassador Rezlan and the ASEAN Institute of Peace Reconciliation have been doing a lot of good work. But of course, there can always be room for improvements. We need to increase, for example, the number of research that we do. We need to do more training programs. We need to involve more, those outside, of our own circle, because sometimes we work together with our own circle, for others outside of the circle come in. So maybe improve on the official and non-official engagement, engagement with civil society organizations and all those things. So we need to improve on those things. So congratulations, Ambassador Rezlan. And congratulations also to Major General Rodon Pedrason. I like his presentation about the soft power and how Indonesia has been using the soft power to address issues in our society. So congratulations to him and to Indonesia. So just a couple of things that I want to mention in terms of soft power and hard power. Is always to address traditional security threats, traditional security issues, and we know that in our society these days, there are more non-traditional security threats, and I think the soft power approach, that is mentioned by Major General Rodon Pedrason, I think many of these can also be used to address non-traditional security threats. And so what are these non-traditional security threats? For example, what we have now, COVID-19, health issues, environmental issues, these are all parts of non-traditional security threats. Being attacked by country, but environment, and there are also other issues that I think we should stress. Issues in the region. There are a lot of issues in regards to, for example, cross-border issues, movement of people, illegal immigrations. Malaysia is a small country, but we have about 150 refugees, from all over Southeast Asia. And the time is up. Give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. What is it I was talking about? Issues of violent extremism, for example. This is something that needs greater collaboration between the countries. And I think ASEAN is very good on this thing. So I want to congratulate ASEAN and Major General Pedrason, because we are actually addressing the issues using the proper strategy, the soft approach, soft power strategy, and it has to be enhanced. And at the same time, I would suggest it has to be made a bit more formal, to institutionalize. It's already institutionalized to some extent, but I think more. And my question to Major General is that when you talk about Indonesia's role in the UN Security Council, and you said that you want to encourage reform of the UN Security Council, my question will be, what kind of reform, can we do or should we do at the UN level? and how to go about doing it? I know it's a very difficult question, but maybe you can give me some ideas, because we know that is a body that has been created after the Second World War, and after so many years, we still have many of the structures, so it's like history already, but we still have those things. How do we do the reform, and in which direction should we go? Connected to that, how about ASEAN? Do you think that ASEAN should also go through some kind of reform? Because ASEAN, even if we are trying to make ASEAN more people-oriented, as Ambassador Rezlan said, ASEAN is still a body of governments, and many of ASEAN activities are always at the top. And there are not enough activities that involve the normal ASEAN people, like you and I. And how can we encourage it to be more expanded, and how we can encourage more people to feel that they are part, that they are part of ASEAN. Do I have some more minutes, or am I over already with time?
You already, your time is already over, sir.
Okay. Sorry for going over time. Next time, don't give me 5
It's
or 10
okay.
minutes, because I'm very long-winded. I can answer other questions later in the question and A. And my apologies for going over time, and congratulations to the speakers and to the organizers once again. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor. It is a very interesting insight from Professor Kamarul Zaman. Will be very useful recommendation, I think. But Professor Kamarul Zaman also has a question for Mr. Rodon. But before Mr. Rodon answer the question, I think we will hear the second discussion. She is a very lovely lady from Thailand. Her name is Dr. Chanintira Natalang. He is an associate professor. From political science, Thammasat University, Bangkok, Thailand. She holds PhD in politics and M.Sc in development, administration and planning from University of Bristol, and BA International Relations from Chulalongkorn University, Thailand. Before working at the Faculty of Political Science in Thammasat University, Thailand, she has various international working experience, such as under International Visiting Leadership Program, sponsored by U.S. Department of State, a teaching fellow at Ludwig Maximilian University of Munich, and a research fellow at CSIS Indonesia, and also tutor at Department of Politics, University of Bristol. Her research interests are security, conflict, international relations with focus on Asia Pacific. Please, to Professor Chanintira, you have 10 minutes to address your talk. Professor Chanintira, you have 10 minutes to address your talk.
First of all, thanks to the organizers for all your hard work in making this event happen.
Professor Chanintira, you have 10 minutes to address your talk.
Speak at this forum, along with the speakers.
Professor Chanintira, you have 10 minutes to address your talk.
I'm very sorry that I cannot be here
I'm sorry, ma'am, but we cannot hear your voice.
Okay, I think we lost connection with Professor Chanitira. Sorry for the techniques.
Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Bangkok. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for all your hard work in making this event happen. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak at this forum along with this panel of distinguished speakers. First of all, I'd like to apologize. I'm very sorry that I cannot be with you at this time of this meeting. I'm afraid that right now, as this meeting is going on, I have a class, and it's the final class before the midterm examination. So my students do need me for that. Because I'm recording this ahead of time, my discussion points are based on PowerPoint slides and talking points that the panelists have prepared beforehand, which I've had the opportunity to go through. So I'll just pick up on that. I do apologize if I've misinterpreted anything because I haven't been present at these talks, but I'll do my best. So I'll give, essentially I'll be giving my opinion by highlighting the challenges and opportunities for peace. And also I'll be talking about some occurring conflicts in Thailand as well. So first of all, I think we've definitely come a long way since the Cold War days. And even though I think this younger generation tend to be critical about ASEAN, because I just came out of a class that focuses on Southeast Asia, my students are still very critical about ASEAN, but I still like to remind them that we have come a long way since the Cold War days. And I think this has been highlighted in Major General Rodon's talk about ASEAN soft power. So I do agree that ASEAN has been instrumental in maintaining peace, stability within the region. And you can see this definitely with the reduction of interstate tensions. So post-Cold War, I think the only notable tensions that have resulted in military clashes between Thailand and Myanmar in 2001 and Thailand and Cambodia in 2001. I do apologize if Thailand has been involved in both conflicts, but because of the foundation that ASEAN has created with, as in they'll talk about soft power, so this has enabled us to work past these tensions and disagreements, and we sort of pursue neighbourly relations in a relatively good manner. So ASEAN has been instrumental in maintaining regional peace. However, I think domestic conflicts still need some attention. And speaking from the Thai experience, I think there are two major concerns at the moment. First of all, there's political divisions. And for those who are not familiar with the conflict in Thailand, these political divisions right now are being played out by, on one hand, the reformist groups and student groups, and on the other, more conservative groups within society. The second conflict in Thailand is the Muslim insurgency in the south of Thailand, and that has been going on for like several decades now. In Professor Rosana's talk, there's been mention about peace education. For me, I think that's really important. I think differences in society are completely normal and they should be embraced. But the question is, how do we live with those differences? differences, differences in religion, differences in opinions, differences in terms of ethnicity, and how do we live with those differences without violence and conflict? And I think it's all in the mindset, and peace education will help address these issues. It's also, in my view, I think it's a long-term measure worth investing in, and it can be passed on from generation to generation. It's also something that has been picked up on by NGOs in the south of Thailand. So they've been promoting this peace education, also promoting inter-religious, inter-ethnic activities to help, society live with differences and not be in conflict with one another. And if the majority have that sort of mindset, I think that would reduce a lot of problems that are going on in several countries in Southeast Asia. So I think my time is up. I've been allocated 5 minutes. So thank you very much. Again, I do apologize for not being there in person. And happy Peace Day, everybody.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start our discussion, I would like to remind you once more to fill in our feedback form to receive our e-certificate. You can find the link in the chat box as well as in the YouTube caption. Today the committee has chosen several interesting questions from the Q&A box in YouTube. In Zoom room. But we will ask them, 3% of them, to deliver it to our speaker. The first question, we have first Marshal Bastari Rajatihang. Hello, Mr. Bastari. Are you still with us? Hello, Mr. Bastari, you can unmute your mic.
Yes, hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bastari.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes. Please, Mr. Bastari, you can deliver your question. And don't forget to introduce yourself first.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, especially to the honorable speakers, I am first Marshal Bastari. I feel very grateful for this occasion to ask a simple question about actually it is about the Asian centrality and about shaping the peace to get a piece of peace in the region. The exact question is this, actually. Each nation has her own national interest. So when it comes to the national interest, so no nation will compromise for the failure of gaining this national interest. 10, so to say, members of Asian country has their own specific national interest. So when the external power or superpower come into the stage of conflict in the regions, so by all means, each state of the Asian country will think of her own national interest. So it is free for them to choose to which superpowers on the states they will align to. So this is the root of conflict. Asian centrality is the remain only the what we call the ideals dreams up on the sky, not on the earth. So my question, how the Asian as an organizations to shape the peace, to gain a piece of peace in this conflicting national interest of each her members. My questions basically is directed and dedicated to Professor Herbert, Rosana, but it is also open to the speakers from the fellow country in this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Bestari, thank you very much for your question. Now we have our second participant to deliver his question. We have Mr. Ludi Romadu. Hello, Mr. Ludi Romadu.
Yeah, hello. Yeah.
Okay. Please, please, sir, you can deliver your question and don't forget to introduce yourself first.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for this chance. My name is Ludi Romadu. I'm teaching at Universitas Pembangunan Nasional, Veteran Yogyakarta. Well, I have short questions, but I'm not sure to whom this question should go to. Yeah. Well, if we look at the fact of cultural differences and then various experiences on managing conflict in Southeast Asia nations, yeah, whether it is intra or inter conflicts, yeah, and then also various trainings that has been conducted until now. I'm just wondering if there are any ASEAN specific approach on peace building like that, or we just leave it to the open room that based on our cultural differences, then we will have a various cultural based peace peace education like that. So I think that's my short questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Mr. Ludi Romadu. And the third chosen participant that could deliver the answer by himself, we have just the Mr. Gani Dwi Satria. Hello, are you with us still in the room? Could you please? Okay, I will ask the question for Mr. Gani. The question is Gani from Indonesia Defense University. He would like to question, if we talk about the conflict of South China Sea, which is China wants to or tries to expand the territory, but as we know, it is too close to our ocean territories. So he would like to hear how ASEAN responds about this conflict. What is the best solution we could get to solve this conflict? And we have also three chosen question from YouTube channel. The first question is for Mr. Rodon. The question is how Indonesia view with the existence of the 5-power defense arrangement, especially in the context of effort to create peace and security in the Southeast Asian region and the transformation of the APSC. The second question is for Professor Herbert Rosana. The participant would like to know what is the best formula to end armed conflict in Mindanao based on your experience. And the third question is for Ambassador Rezlan. I would read the question in bahasa. Upaya apa yang dapat dilakukan untuk mengembalikan dan menguatkan keyakinan terhadap nilai dasar agama yang ada di Asia Tenggara sebagai fondasi dasar perdamaian sehingga tidak menjadi conflict issue. Okay, so there are the question. I would like to please to maybe to Major General Rodon Pedrason first to deliver the question, the answer. Hello, Pak Rodon.
Yang mana Mbak Widya yang itu yang tentang FPDA itu. Halo.
Halo.
Yang tentang FPDA kan?
Yeah, yes.
Oke, mungkin saya jawab pertama yang pertanyaan dari Profesor Kamaruzzaman ya. Sebelum itu, Profesor Jamal, about what about the what kind of the also power or maybe a reformation from in the UN Security Council, and what kind of the related to I know. I'm not myself. Okay. So related to ASEAN about the kind of reforms. So what I said about the veto right in the UN Security Council, it should not be dominated by only for 5 P or 5 permanent member of UN Security Council. So because there's such kind of right or activity that been done or be did by the country so far is a very contradictory, also very ineffective to solve the problem. Where the problem itself, or what I mean is related to the human right, also related to the life of many people, related to the humankind, and also uh, it's more importantly, it's related to the existence of a country, whole people, and not only related to the safe of the interest of certain countries such as a 5 permanent member of the UN Security Council. So the veto right, I think, should are not only have by the when they have it not only by based on historical background, as the winner of the World War II. So I should all countries should have the equality in such a veto right. So if we think about the what kind of the related to ASEAN, so we realize that the ASEAN is bring the common interest, meaning the regional interest rather than their own interest. So ASEAN should be more solid, I think, more solid in facing major power existence in our regional. So the where those countries, let's say like say the major power like China and America in our region, uh, uh, compete each other for their own interests. So, so if the ASEAN are solid enough, I think other countries like let's say European countries, maybe France or maybe also other countries, also try to impose the rights or their interest in the region. It could be more difficult for us to solve the problem when the ASEAN is not solid. So the second question is because the second question, what about the problem about the FPDA in ASEAN? We realize it actually that 2 ASEAN member states, let's say Singapore and Malaysia, being the member of the FPDA. The FPDA we know exactly from the last to 20 years or 15 years ago, only thinking but they concern definitely about the disaster management, about only maritime power, maritime security. Now, but only now the FPDA think about South China Sea, about what the very actual threat that happened now in our region. So when we think about the FPDA having a problem with also let's say well, the ASEAN also being let's say interrupted by the FPDA or maybe feeling not uh, good enough for the access of the FPDA, I don't think so. Because the FPDA being a partner for us, for ASEAN. The concern are the FPDA now so far, not only related to their own interest, also the concern about the extent of major power in the region. So they think, and I think for ASEAN, should try to accommodate what the FPDA want to create something in our region, what the FPDA want to taking action something in ASEAN. So far, they never tried to impose their own interests in the region, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodon. Maybe we will continue to Ambassador Rezlan. Hello, Ambassador Rezlan.
Thank you very much. Perhaps I take the last question first. And I would like to answer it by saying that the ASEAN member countries in ASEAN are all in unity in how they would like the conduct of member countries to be conducted in maintaining peace and stability in the region. There are many principles that we are holding to. There are many lessons learned that comes from it, and I think to see that the solution to each problem is being done through peaceful means, through dialogue. And I do believe that many agreements, many conventions like the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation, ZOPFAN, are having principles that are not in contravention with any religion that are in the world. Indeed, as far as I know, it's indeed in line with the teachings of all religion that wants to see peace. So I think I don't see any contradiction between the two. So that's my answer to the last question. And I think these principles have been honored in the conduct of ASEAN member states, I mean, in the region, as well as within ASEAN member states and countries coming from other regions. The Treaty of Amity and Cooperation has been exceeded by many countries, not only from ASEAN, but from outside of ASEAN. That shows the, and I'm now trying to answer also the question of Bastari. This shows the centrality of ASEAN. And more so is that ASEAN, through its has created a number of institutionalized meetings where we have a dialogue with the ASEAN +1, ASEAN +3. We have the dialogue between other regions as well. We have the East Asia Summit, and these are avenues which is created and led by ASEAN that give a platform for many countries, be it from the region and outside the region, to be together and to work for common interests. And this shows how ASEAN centrality is in the making or in action. And this is one that has been recognized as useful by many countries. Therefore, like what Pak Rodon have mentioned, the ASEAN Regional Forum, where big countries, powerful countries, as well as members of ASEAN and other countries are there to discuss many important things of common interest. I am not in a position to answer whether ASEAN has specific peace education, but I think among the three pillars, each of the activities of the three pillars are so designed to enable the discussion of many important subjects by many stakeholders in ASEAN that eventually, I believe, eventually would create understanding, would create understanding and also acknowledgement of each other's view. And that is, I think, one part also, maybe not in a formal education way, but through many of the meetings that we have, it's something that is also contributive to the objective of what Pak Zhang said, a culture of peace, where everything is discussed open, freely, and that creates this really sense of us being part of the issue that is on the table. I think that is my response. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Rezlan. Hello, Professor Herbert. Are you still here with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
I'm listening.
please.
Yeah.
Please, your time.
I don't know if I get the first question, but I understood that the first question was talking about national security. I think ASEAN is a very unique organization because of consensus and respect for each other, which is typically an Asian characteristic. Um, are you able to hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes,
Do you hear
sir.
me?
Yes. Please continue.
Okay. I was saying that ASEAN is a very unique organization because of its based on consensus and togetherness, which is a very Asian characteristic. But there are also situations wherein national interest sometimes interferes in the way ASEAN deals with the bigger powers, like for example the United States and China and the other players outside of the region. That's the main reason why answering another question about the South China Sea, I think it's a very difficult situation. I think there should be more. ASEAN should push for more. I think ASEAN should push for more dialogue and discussion about this, because most countries in ASEAN becomes divided when they confront this problem, because the primary factor influencing their decisions are their national security vis-a-vis China, which is the bigger player in the region. And I think there's also a need to make some reform in the ASEAN to make it more effective, because there are certain aspects that are not addressed by the organizations. For example, security and also human rights. And I don't know if there's such a thing as a human rights regime in among the ASEAN countries. And somebody was asking about how to end the armed conflict in Mindanao. I think there is a clear answer to this, and I think that it's only proper and right that the people of Mindanao, particularly the Bangsamoro people, that they have the right to self-determination. And I think it was addressed many times already. And the last agreement was I think it was recently in 2012, and I think it is being implemented now. But the problem in Mindanao is that there are many spoilers of peace. Like for example, you also have the rightist politicians who do not agree to this. Then there are also the extremists, the Islamists also. They try to spoil everything. But I think everything is going in the right track at the moment. And one thing talking about peace education, I wish I could have more
Hello, Professor Herbert, we cannot hear you. I think, hello.
You cannot hear
Yes.
me. You cannot.
Maybe you could just turn off your video so it will be better. The connection will be better. Okay.
Uh, the next watch my presentation in my YouTube channel, which I have shared in the chat box.
Thank you very much, Professor Herbert. Thank you very much, Professor Herbert. Yes, for for the participants, you can find the presentation of Professor Herbert in the caption section in the YouTube channel. And still we have two questions for Professor Kamarul Zaman Iskandar. The first question came from Mr. Igede Adi Wiranata. He wants to know how to educate the children and youth about the concept of peace. And the second question come from Mr. Esanullah Oria. The question is, do you think it is necessary to develop a synergic international or regional education system in ASEAN to create a culture of peace? Please to Mr. Kamarul Zaman. Hello, Professor. Yeah, please, the screen is yours. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll be very short. So peace education. Well, it's interesting, that I will not answer the question of how to go about teaching peace, to our and to the youth, because I think I have already, in my first response just now talked at length about how to be teaching peace in a creative way. So I will just let it stand that way. It has to be taught in a creative way to make the students, the young people feel that peace is their way of life. In terms of a regional peace education, it's interesting. If you look at the countries in Southeast Asia, there are actually quite a lot of countries with peace education programs. And these programs are, basically, especially at the institutions of higher institutions, in universities, either as part of the political science section or as standing on its own. For example, we also have universities with Center for Peace and Conflict Studies offering masters, PhD programs, and the like. In peace studies, in conflict studies, we do have these things, but unfortunately, we do not have a regional one. We do not have a regional program. And I think that is something that is worth thinking, worth doing. Meaning that we have already all these programs in the various countries in the region, and why don't we start a regional, peace studies, conflict studies program that can benefit from a sharing, of information and students exchange and all those things. And this is something that basically can be achieved at the ASEAN level through the ASEAN University Network. The ASEAN University Network is a network of universities in various fields, and they have the ASEAN University Network Human Rights Education Program. And this is a very active program. The human rights education, it's a program that share information. Is a program that encourages the countries, the member countries, to do research together, and it's also connected to a few networks, human rights networks around the region. For example, the S.I.P network, which is strengthening human rights and peace education in Southeast Asia, and the Southeast Asian Human Rights Network. So you have that particular component. So human rights education in the region is already quite strong and becoming stronger. Peace education it's really at baby steps. We are moving slowly. Hopefully we can get to another level. I was also interested to look at the questions by Kintan Farhanyanti, in the Q&A box, and she's asking about peace education syllabus, and can we find a syllabus that is common, to the region, and this is a bit problematic. Okay, this is a bit problematic because of the fact that we all more or less think the same about peace. We think that peace is a situation where there is no violence, where people living in harmony, where you have law and order and all those things. It's also an aspiration, that we want to have. So we share a lot of same thinking, but at the same time, the notion of peace also differs, according to the mindset and the thinking of the countries in Southeast Asia, because we also belong to different political systems. For example, you have country, a country which is very democratic. For example, Indonesia, the Philippines. That's like the extreme on one side, and then on the other side, we have countries who are a bit more tight. I don't want to say authoritarian, but they are a bit more restrictive, and a lot of restrictions on what people can do within their own society, and their focus is more on stability and security from the perspective of the state, not from the perspective of the community or from society. So how can we have a syllabus that combines everything together when there are differences in the way that we think about what is the nature of peace, within our own society? So we need to find out, that first. And I think it is something, that is worth doing. Maybe ASEAN IPR, Pak Rezlan, can start a discussion, can start the ball rolling towards understanding, what is peace in Southeast Asia, from various angles, not only from the angles of the leaders, but from the angles of the society, the community, the victims of conflict, the religious people, so all these things, because we each have our own notions of peace. So we start the ball rolling, toward discussing this one. Since I have the floor, I will also say, you want me to answer some other questions, or is that enough, Vidya?
Okay, that's it. I think Professor Mahroza.
Okay, I will stop because I wanted
Thank
to
you
ask
very much.
about South China Sea, but then I will stop there. It's okay.
I think we will sum up the question and another question, and I will just email to you. Okay, next question still. We have a very short time here. Maybe I want to read the question from Nizam Safaras. He is a peace and conflict resolution student from Indonesia Defense University. The question is for Ambassador Rezlan. He would like to know, as far as we concerned that ASEAN encourage the principle of non-intervention within its member. However, if there is a gross violation of human rights under the jurisdiction of one country and under ASEAN, how does ASEAN member respond to this? Considering that we also have human rights responsibilities under the principle of R2P. To Ambassador Rezlan, would you please to answer the question?
Okay. So thank you. Yes, thank you for the question. And thank you for reminding me that ASEAN has certain principles on how they work and how they respond to any situation. The principle of non-interference and respect for sovereignty is still there, and I think it's not only a principle that is followed or respected in ASEAN, but also it's coming from the UN Charter. But however, the implementation perhaps is different from country to country. But I think if we we see the development of ASEAN from the beginning until now, I think ASEAN has moved forward. We still have this principle of non-intervention, but it is more nuanced now. So we cannot be indifferent to certain thing that is happening, that is creating a challenge to all 10 ASEAN countries. But on how to address it, I mean, there is a way to address it. And I think ASEAN has created a good way where certain problems are being addressed in a way a family deals with it. So it's been discussed in an informal way with the intention to help other countries in solving their problem or the challenges that they have. So I think perhaps one might not be satisfied with how ASEAN is dealing with such a challenge, but I think it has achieved some successes. And for instance, when Myanmar was under international pressure because of the democratization process, ASEAN has taken its own way, and it proves to be helping Myanmar to transform into a democracy that they are now. I think that is my response. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Rezlan. Ladies and gentlemen, we are sorry that discussion is, sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, from our discussion today, I will conclude the discussion that there is still, we can see that there is still a lot of homework to establish the culture of peace in ASEAN fully. But those homeworks also means that ASEAN has room to improve. However, we have already taken a step forward with this webinar by shaping the peace culture today. Thank you very much for your attention. Please do not forget to fill in the feedback to receive the e-certificate. You can find the link at the chat box as well as in the YouTube caption. But now I will give back the floor to Mr. Adri. Thank you very much to the speakers and participants. I will give back to Mr. Adri. Please, Mr. Adri.
Thank you very much, Vidya. All right, so we've just listened to a fruitful discussion this afternoon. And before our closing session, I would like to invite the convener of today's webinar, Dr. Priska De Lima. Would you please announce the lucky participants who will get our special giveaway? Dr. Priska, the screen is yours.
Okay, is it me?
Yes, we can listen to you.
Yeah, all right, thank you. Before that, I will try if I can share peace greetings from Dr. Mani Sharma. I'm sorry. I don't think I can share Dr. Mani's video. Probably Co-Secretary General, Dr. Sri Nuryanti, can have greetings now, if you may, Madam. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Major General TNI, Dr. Jonni Mahroza, S.I.P, M.A, M.Sc, Vice-Rector of Indonesia Defense University, Mr. Ambassador Rezlan Ishar Jenie, the Executive Director of the Asian Institute of Peace and Reconciliation, Major General TNI, Dr. Paul Rodon Pedrason, M.A, Professor Herbert Rosana, Profesor Dr. Mahroza Manaskandar, Associate Professor Dr. Chanintira Nantalang, Vidya from University of Defense as the moderator, and also Dr. Priska Delima and all the crew. On behalf of Asia Pacific Peace Research Association, I would like to convey our gratitude, and we are very pleased to be asked to host this very timely topic for today's webinar. The topic of shaping peace together to build a culture of peace among Southeast Asian nations will be very much relevant to our condition today. So COVID-19, hopefully one side is giving us a bad effect because we cannot go anywhere, but I think it also giving us a strength to still working together to shape the culture of peace among our countries. So I think every country has their own challenges to be answered, and I do hope that today's webinar will give you an inspiring ideas on how we could get together in the future for closely working on several topics that we are able to do. So without further ado, I would like to convey again our gratitude and also regards from Dr. Mani Sharma, who actually also sent greetings, but Dr. Priska unable to play that on. So again, thank you very much for this joint cooperation, and we wish you all stay safe and happy. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Ms. Sri Nuryanti.
All right, thank you, Dr. Sri Nuryanti. I guess this is my turn now. Thank you very much for the distinguished participants. And we have chosen some lucky winners of our giveaways of today's webinar from the registration form. So the first one, the one who have a set of Indonesia Defense magazines and the stickers is Mr. Dermawan Intiardi. So please, Mr. Dermawan Intiardi, direct your message and follow Indonesia Defense Magazine on Instagram and follow at the IDF, and IDF makes to claim your magazine and stickers. And the next one, we also have Gemes. I have the one with me right here. So Gemes is our mascot, IPRA's mascot, and Gemes will go to Insinyur Marjono, Mr. Merjames Pakpahan, Nukila Evanti, Muhammad Fibian Aufla, and S. Hanullah Oria. Please direct message and follow IPCRA on Instagram at IPCRA and Gemes IPCRA Brave to claim your lovely teddy bear. And don't worry, all distinguished panelists, you will have one of this later on. Thank you. Back to you, Adri.
All right, thank you, Dr. Priska. So congratulations to all giveaways winner, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Ikatan Alumni Unhan and at IPCRA IPCRA. Also to visit our website www.ipcra-id.org. And ladies and gentlemen, so now we have come to the end of our webinar today. I would like to invite the chairman of IPCRA, Mr. Bonar Nasution, to address his closing statement video.
I'm the chairman of Indonesia Peace and Conflict Resolution Association. which is also known as IPCRA. First of all, I would like to say thank you and great appreciation for all the speakers and the participants who joining our today's program. This program is to contribute to the International Day of Peace, which we hold United Nations Resolution 36/67 and adopted in UN Chapter 8/55/282. I'm very proud that this pandemic situation is not stopping us to conduct this event that is hopefully useful for all us. And finally, I thank you all from the bottom of my heart. This is the peace of peace from Indonesia to the world, and let's shape the peace together. Thank you.
Is at the heart of ASEAN's very existence. ASEAN has placed the promotion of regional peace and security at the forefront of its endeavor. Peace is more than the absence of war. It is a vital element to sustainable development. Thus, ASEAN strives to the principles of comprehensive security and building a cohesive and resilient community. This is where the ASEAN IPR work lies, an institution for research and capacity building on peace and conflict resolution, part of the ASEAN community building. While celebrating peace, we are also acutely aware of the lingering challenges that continue to affect us, today compounded by the COVID-19 pandemic. It is a relevant theme, therefore, for this year, that we stand together in fostering peace and fight this pandemic. ASEAN IPR will continue its activities, spreading a culture of peace, tolerance, and understanding, engaging all stakeholders, including women and the youth, while ASEAN as a whole continues to work for a comprehensive post-pandemic recovery for the region, working together with all its partners. Let us celebrate peace by spreading compassion, kindness, and hope in the face of the pandemic. May peace be upon us all.
Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to this webinar, and I extend my greetings to all the participants in this webinar, and wherever you are in Southeast Asia, in Asia, in Europe, in America, and in the world. And I would like to extend greetings of peace from the beautiful islands of the Philippines. Behind me is the majestic Mount Mayon volcano, and it is a symbol and icon of the Bicol region in the Philippines. And in Tagalog, we say kapayapaan for peace, and in Bicol, we say katuninongan. Happy and welcome to this webinar.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so with the closing statement from IPCRA's chairman as well as the video given by the speakers, I would like to finally thank all the honorable speakers, discussants, and of course, every single participant to joining us today in the IPCRA's webinar series number 4. And thank you very much for your kind attention and attendance. Ladies and gentlemen, stay safe and healthy, and hopefully to meet you again in the next IPCRA's webinar session in October. I am Adri Deliardi, and all the committees on duty would like to close this event. Have a nice day and keep shaping peace wherever you are. May peace be upon you all.
Bye. Thank you, Prof. Herbert.
Terima kasih, jumpa lagi.
Thank you, Ambassador Rezlan.
Terima kasih, Profesor.
Pak Rodon.
Thank you.
Pak Jonni,
Maraming
Profesor
salamat po.
Herbert.
Pak Yanti, apa kabar?
Baik.
Terima kasih, terima kasih.
Terima kasih Pak Dubes, terima kasih Bung Zam.
Sama-sama. Pak Zam.
Ya, Pak Rezlan. Saya kangen sama